so the first primary years up to about the second grade, and came back for sixth grade, and I'm at Episcopal High School now. My name is Madison Marley. I'm a freshman in high school.
I'm Brianna Airy. I went here from the time I was 3 until I was 10. I was homeschooled all through middle school, and now I'm a senior at Newton Conover Health Science.
Hi, I'm Amanda Schubert. I started here when I was 3 and a half, and then I left to go to Newton Conover Middle School after my 6th grade year. And now I'm also at Newton Conover Health Science High School, and I'm a senior there as well.
My name is Drew Klein. I started preschool around age 3, went through 5th grade. I transitioned to Newton Conover Middle School, went to Maiden High School, and then I spent a year at the Newton Conover School of Health and Science and finished at St. Stephen's. I went around a lot, and graduated in 2011, and now I live in Wilmington, and I go to Cape Fear Community College.
I'm Nat. I went to Montessori from age 3 to the end of 6th grade. I then went to Newton Conover Middle School, then Newton Conover Health Science High School, and I'm now a sophomore at UNC Chelsea.
I'm Sarah Airy. I've had 2 children here, Brianna, and then my daughter Malin is here now. She was here when she was 3 and 4, and then started back when we moved back from Georgia, and is in 7th grade here.
I'm Rob Glenn. I am a parent. Nat is one of my sons. My other son, Turner, went to Montessori from age 3 through 6th grade, just like Nat, and now is a sophomore at Newton Conover Health Science High School. And our daughter, Matty, is 10 and is in the elementary program here. So we've been here continuously since 1996, so I feel like I'm a graduate.
I'm Marian Erickson. We have 2 girls here, one in 4th grade here and one in kindergarten. And we've been in Montessori. Our oldest daughter did her 3-year-old from school at a traditional school, and then we discovered Montessori. So we're going to be here right until high school.
I'm Ray McKinnon, and my daughter Isabella is a student here. And she started in the primary class when she was 3 and is now in the junior class in 5th grade. And she plans on going through the middle school.
I really feel like Montessori set the foundation for the rest of my academic career. I think that had I gone into a traditional setting, I would have done well. I think that I have done a lot better having the Montessori experience to really concrete the things that you need to know early on. I don't know if that answers the question.
Anybody else?
Well, I kind of have a unique experience because I started out in the early program, and I went to the public elementary school, and then I went to an international baccalaureate school, and then back here for 6th grade. And after experiencing a lot of different experiences, and now at a boarding school in Alexandria, Virginia, right outside Washington, D.C., I think Montessori definitely set a very firm foundation that has helped me through all of my educational experiences. And I would definitely recommend it to prospective parents.
I also think it's the greatest thing. I always say that I got a degree, not an education. I mean, I learned how to study for the tests. I learned how to pick in college, pick my professors based on who I knew, and I knew how to work the system. With Montessori, the children are taught, the curriculum is filled with concrete materials, and they learn things rather than just studying and memorizing. Like my daughter in 4th grade, she knows all her times tables. Never once, ever, did she have to come home and memorize her multiplication tables. She just knows them because the materials lead to that. So I can understand from a parent Montessori, if you're not that familiar with it, can be difficult to understand. Our daughter going through three-year-old preschool in a normal school, when she started Montessori, she'd come home and I'd say, what did you do today? Oh, I walked around. I kept hearing I walked around. I said, I'm going to put a pedometer on you and see if you're really just walking around all day. But it's amazing, amazing the growth and development that is taught in a Montessori environment.
I think if you spend any time in the classrooms, you get to see the methods, but I can tell you that over time, the methods turn into learning in a way that's really amazing. The kids assimilate the methods, and some of it looks really mechanical and looks really physical, but it's helping their brains wire in a way that promotes learning and helps them through the rest of their lives learn very well. And both of my sons transitioned from the elementary program here into regular public middle school and high school seamlessly, because they were able to take their ability to learn and then learn in a totally different environment with no issues. So I think what you don't need to fear is the transition. If you're thinking about, well, my kid can't go here forever, so this is a great little environment, but what about when they leave? And both of my sons have left very well and are learning very well in another environment. And so that translation of the methods into learning skills and life skills and self-discipline, from my experience, has been fantastic and is worth the experience, worth bringing your kids here.
When I first started, you learn to love to learn. And so any assignment I've had, even the assignments that I've had several times that I don't originally love, or I'm not looking forward to doing that, there's always been something I can find that's interesting to me, and I can always find something that I want to do. It's also made me really like doing the more individualized projects, trying to think of something I can do that's not the same as everybody else's project. I think that's really going to help in college, when you have to come up with your own ideas for a paper or something else like that.
I would say that Montessori definitely prepared me for the type of learning I'm doing now, simply because it's not spoon-fed to you. Montessori teaches you to think using your critical thinking skills, not just by having you do worksheets. You're doing activities, and you're being taught things which encourage you to learn on your own, which I find, as you parents know, is definitely a big part of your college experience. That's about it.
I think a lot of it is just what the kids have already said, that they really love to learn. And when we homeschooled in Georgia for several years, and Brianna just took things on herself and was really happy just teaching herself and investigating things for herself. And when she got to college, when she got to the high school, another parent asked me one time if she had completed a paper that was due the next day. And I said, oh, yeah, she's gotten that done. And then we got in the car and I said, so Brianna, you have a paper due tomorrow. She said, yeah. I said, well, did you get it done? She said, yeah. And I never followed up on her. And part of that might just be Brianna, but part of it really is that she had been responsible for her own learning and keeping track of it for a lot of years. And what I wanted more than anything was for her to love learning and to be responsible for her learning. And I figured with that, she could go anywhere. And I felt like this was a great setting for that.
Yeah, the emphasis is on learning, not on memorization, not on replicating work over and over again. I will say that for both of my boys, the first day of public middle school was probably like somebody's first day in Afghanistan or something. In shock just because of the amount of noise movement and chaos. But within 2 days, they adapted, so they learned how to adapt quickly. But very much like what Sarah said, they learn through the method to be proud of the progress they make themselves and to be self-disciplined. And several of the kids here have gone to the Health Science High School in Newton Conover, which is very project-based learning. And the kids can tell you that it's, for some of the kids that come out of other programs into the Health Science High School, they have a lot of trouble with the projects, with being self-disciplined enough to make progress on the projects in time and not have to rush at the end. Just like Sarah said, I've never had to ask either of my kids in middle school or high school, have you done your homework, or are you ready for the project? Like, it's invisible. Maybe I'm just lucky, maybe we've been lucky, but I don't think it's a coincidence that Sarah and I have the same experience.
Well, and also, I always thought that even if it were a tough transition, that having this foundation would be worth it. That a transition is something that we could work through, and we would have not just the learning foundation, but there's so much emphasis at the school of working through things and talking about things, that together we could work our way through a transition. And that a fear of what might happen in the future wasn't enough for me not to go ahead and go with what looked like it was really going to work, and it did work for us.
How is it similar? I think that in a lot of ways, Montessori teaches the same, not curriculum, but it teaches the same content, but it does it in a way that is not just content, but it's life skills as well. Yeah, I really don't know how it's not different than public school. We don't do worksheets just for the sake of doing worksheets. We are taught to respect ourselves and respect the materials of the school, as well as each other and just the world around us. And I think that's not something that you get in a public school setting.
That's one thing I was going to mention. I think from what I've seen, they're taught to be good citizens. And I think that's so important today, and to respect others with differences, other cultures. They learn about all different cultures. They learn about different religions. And I think that's a very important core value to have, especially out in the world today when they get older.
And I remember when I transferred over to the public elementary school, there was a lot of work that was very repetitive and monotonous and busy work, and that was something I was quite unfamiliar with. And you know, it was a lot of work where you did what was expected of you, and it was spoon-fed to you. You wrote down what the teacher instructed, and you know, you went by the book. And whereas at Montessori, you know, that you have more influence in what you learn and how you learn it, and there's a lot more concrete basis to it that I personally feel teaches the topics much clearer and a lot better than, you know, just going over things over and over and over again in written memorization.
When we moved to Georgia, we had intended to enroll our children in a Montessori school there, and just we'd be going Montessori to Montessori. And then I went and spent a morning at the school and realized that not all Montessori is the same. And what was missing from that school was the level of respect that the teachers and children shared, and the world view that I found here. And I wasn't willing to compromise on those. So we homeschool. But that's something that has meant a lot to me about having my children here, is that they are spoken to respectfully. They learn to speak respectfully, not because someone's saying, you need to speak respectfully, but because that's just the tone of the environment. And I think that's the kind of thing that just doesn't get put down in black and white on a piece of paper, but is a vital part of their education as a whole person. When Brianna was 4, I was put on bed rest, and she suddenly went from going to school until noon to being there until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I cannot imagine another place where she could have been that I felt that comfortable, knowing that she was here for that long day and knowing that she was really being cared for. And Trey was late getting here one day and said that he drove up and Kenyon and Brianna and another student were out in the garden picking peas and eating them.
I was not upset about having to stay at Montessori. I wanted to stay at Montessori that late for a really long time, and I just happened to work out.
Incredibly jealous.
By the way.
I remember.
But it was just such a relief because, you know, that was not something we ever anticipated needing from the school. But when it happened, just to have it be such an easy transition and to know that not just physically, but they were, you know, there was a lot going on in our family and she was really being cared for. It was priceless.
That's something else that, you know, the rules aren't written out, there's no like complete full letter by letter handbook like there are at a lot of places. You know, the environment's created, there are a few rules that are gone over and discussed. You know, and I even remember, you know, the rules that were made, there was often input from the students about what rules were made. You know, and things, you know, you acted respectfully, and you know that was the rule. Was, you know, you do the right thing, and that idea of just doing the right thing and expecting students to do the right thing is something that is just, you know, isn't expected in a lot of schools, and so they feel the need to make everything black and white.
I think also, you know, we're not just being told, obviously, through what you said, you're never told this is what you do, but being in an environment where these values and things that you learn what to do and what not to do, and it's modeled by your teachers and everyone around you, so you just naturally fit into it. And I think especially having the teachers respect you as much as you respect them and seeing them respect each other, I think that may be one of the main things that helps those values be installed. I remember having weekly lessons on values. We learned I remember tact was one week, and it was never you should act with tact. It was more like, this is what tact is. We are learning what this means, how it can be used in your life.
I don't remember that.
I think you read that later.
I remember that.
We had a tree, and we had like constants of
Well, I think there's so much.
another big impact. No one else.
Montessori is described as a prepared environment, and I think there's so much that goes into it that the children, and often we as parents, just never see, that create this atmosphere. I substituted in the classroom when Brianna was young, and Mary Helen was showing me that when you give a lesson, you don't talk, or just use, you know, maybe the 1 or 2 vocabulary words for that activity, because it's so hard for a child to listen and focus on what you're doing. And things like that had never occurred to me. But in a way, that's respect too. It's respecting the child's learning process. And so much has gone into preparing this environment and the way Maria Montessori set it up and the teachers have learned to implement it, that it all funnels into this kind of learning experience.
There's definitely a lot of influence, personal influence on pace. You know, things are done individually, and part of having the small classrooms makes that a little easier to do. And I always found the pace to be, you know, what I needed it to be. And I had some struggles early on, especially with spelling and that sort of thing. But I would overcome those, and my teachers helped me work through that.
I can remember doing an activity that I thought was a lot of fun, and after a couple of weeks, Mary Helen was like, well, I'll just give you a lesson in something else. And I did not want to get a lesson in something else because I so enjoyed doing this one activity, but she recognized that it was time for me to move on and try something else. So I was allowed to work through the building blocks of what I needed to learn, and she would give us that extra push to get to where we needed to be. So a lot of it is at your own pace, but it's not, you're not crawling through the material.
As a parent, a big difference that we see is that there is no homework. The students do so much work during the day, and they get so much accomplished that it leaves family time. I don't know how people could fit homework in. There's so little time with our children in the evenings as it is, that I'm so grateful that we don't have to take it away for that. And I know some people wonder how, I had one parent say to me, isn't Montessori where your child can just have snack all day? There's so many misconceptions out there. There is freedom in the classroom, but in order to earn that freedom, the children learn all the rules. They learn to respect each other, the materials. There are rules that they learn to follow so they can have the freedoms. And you walk into these classrooms, and it's a beautiful thing to see these children, the work they're doing, and how busy they are, and how happy they are.
The way this Montessori school is set up too, it really allows the teachers to tailor your child's education to your child specifically, because they spend several years in a row with this one child, and so get to know that child and know exactly what they need and what they need to learn, which, like Brianna was talking about, really helps with the pacing and really helps them to facilitate the, I don't want to say rhythm, but facilitate the, I guess, the pace of their learning, when to move from one thing to the other.
Yes, along with that, it's easier for the teachers to understand, like when Brianna's saying when a child is ready to move on, or when a child is needs some more help on something or needs a little bit more time on this, and also the teachers, by being in this program for a while, I think I was able to recognize that in myself. So now in my other schooling and in high school, I know when I've mastered a topic and when I know all about this, and also I know when I don't know a topic and when I need help. And I think sometimes here I'm on this level with the teachers, I'm on the level with my classmates, that I'm not embarrassed. I feel no problem with saying I don't understand this. And so I still don't have any problems saying that, and there'll be times in class where I'll just say, I don't get this, I need more help, you need to go back over this. And I think I've mastered and learned that because of the level of respect and the level of doing things at the Montessori base.
I definitely felt that I was better prepared because of Montessori than most of the kids who were there. I have one specific memory. I didn't spend first grade here at Montessori. I left after kindergarten, went to first grade at Mountain View Elementary, and then came back. I remember it was like the second day of first grade at Mountain View. We were going over the alphabet, and the teacher asked where our alphabet comes from. And like, I was really shy, and so I didn't really want to speak up, and none of the other kids would say anything either, because I guess they didn't know. So she sat there just for a few minutes kind of looking at us, and I eventually raised my hand, and I knew it was from the Greek alphabet. And this was stuff that I had known since preschool. So it's really, yeah, and even in high school, I had a leg up on stuff. Like I started learning algebra in, I guess, 5th grade, and while I still had to take algebra class in 8th grade, it was much easier to do that because I had and math isn't my strongest subject at all. I hate math, but at Montessori, I loved it because I was not just sitting there with a page full of numbers. I was learning through stamp and the bead chains, and I knew this material better because of the way Montessori taught it.
I remember reviewing for end of grade test or the writing test, I think it was my 7th grade, reviewing for the language arts EOG, something like that. And we did some sort of practice test, and I finished and reviewed my answers, and I was done about 20 minutes before everybody else. And my teacher kept coming back to me and telling me to look over my answers, and I kept getting irritated because I was done, and I didn't understand why people needed more time.
I made transfer. I was in an IB school for 4th and 5th grade, and I went to the Grandview Middle School, the Grove Middle School, for 7th and 8th grade. And there were times when I knew concepts that were being gone over, and I actually feel under challenged by the public school system. I had that feeling multiple times. The Ivy School was challenging, but I was well prepared for it. From things that I learned here, and I definitely think that the school challenged me in all subjects and that it really did prepare me well, and has prepared me well for high school, and I've done pretty well this year. And I am challenged every day at this school, but Montessori definitely gave me the foundation to be able to manage those challenges and progress in my education.
I'm not sure I would ever even necessarily use the word challenged for the work I did at Montessori, simply because it never felt like a challenge. It never felt like something intimidating that I had to do. It was fun, and it was, I would use the word stimulating rather than challenging, because it was difficult enough that I would have to work at it, but like I said, it never felt like a challenge. Like I never felt like something was being forced upon me, or like I was being overworked. I was working at the exact pace that I needed to work at, and I learned what I needed to learn. Stimulate is definitely the word I would use to describe my education.
Both Nat and Turner, the only challenges they had when they made the transition to public middle school were the administrative things they had to do with school locker combinations and cafeteria rules and pickup line rules and all that kind of stuff. But academically, there was nothing in the most challenging classes they could take in the public middle school that they weren't prepared for by staying here through 6th grade. And, as Nat said, he did go to 1st grade in Mountain View Elementary because we lived way on the other side of Mountain View. We thought it was just tough to get over here every day, but we pulled it out after 1 year because he wasn't challenged there. He was frustrated. He was frustrated with the worksheets, and he was bringing homework home in 1st grade, but it wasn't anything stimulating. It wasn't anything that was creating learning for him. And things he told us about 1st grade made me feel like that unfortunately the structure there was more focused on keeping order and discipline and filling up the day than it was stimulating and learning. I mean, I know they were trying to create an educational experience too, but there were so many things that were just about keeping control of the classroom and filling up the day until they could get back on the bus and go home. And it never feels like that here.
You know, I do remember when Brianna started at the high school and was having her first tests, and we're figuring out that whole, you get a grade and it's a number and it means something to people. And it was challenging for her. But I told her at the time that I was so glad that she was facing that at the age she was, that she had not grown up identified with a number and the way the mixed age classrooms work and the individual learning. There wasn't a sense of this person is smarter than this person and this person, you know, was way down the totem pole. There was none of that, that one person might be ahead in one subject and would be helping other students, and then somebody else, their stronger subject, they were the ones helping everybody else. And I really liked that whole atmosphere. And I remember when the kids got to the third grade testing, and these guys were in the first group to get there with Montessori, and I asked Mary Helen how I'd gone, and she laughed and she said, well, the hardest part of the whole test was to keep them from helping each other. Because that was just the way it learned. You know, if you had a question, you asked your buddy.
As a grandparent, can I say something? I've written it on a card, but I'm not going to embarrass Drew by it. To make him answer it, because I'm going to answer it for him, and it goes very much along with what you said. A few months ago, or 6 months ago, Drew came to me, and he was upset. He was in at St. Stephen's, and this was, I guess, about a year ago. He sat down next to me, and he's tears in his eyes, and he said, I just wish I were back at Montessori. And here he is, 18 years old when he said it, or 19, and I looked at him and I said, why do you want to be back at Montessori? And he said, because it is so much easier. And he didn't mean academically. He meant the communication, the socialization. Kids were nice to each other. He was at St. Stephen's where kids weren't nice to each other. Whether it was any of the stuff you hear today, we all hear it. And it goes very much along with what you're saying, that they wanted to help each other with an exam. I haven't heard that one before. But you know, they're out on the playground and somebody falls and there are 2 or 3 kids there to pick them up. And there's nobody out there to kick them and say, fall down again. And the kindness level at Montessori was just overwhelming to me. And it's something that Drew remembered many, many, many years later and just said, I wish I were back there because it's easier. And that was, I thought that was very, very complimentary to what the experiences that he had here, that it was easier because people were nicer. And you have to go out in the real world sometime. That's unfortunately.
I was thinking of that, like socially, I know people have come up to me and said, my dad. How are they to be prepared socially? They both have the accent. They're not the same as everybody else. And how are they going to transition? You can't keep her in there all the time. And I just was going to ask you guys, was that hard to, I mean, I think that would be hard. You talked about that it wasn't nice all the time, and I think that's some of the worry that, like, wow, how are we going to prepare you when you go out to a not so nice school?
Yeah, there were a lot of conversations when I went into the 6th grade that I had no idea what they were talking about. All these slang terms that I would just go home and ask Mom. That was always the easiest thing to do. And then while I was listening to it, just nod my head and smile. And that was hard, that social aspect. All these terms and just everything out there are crazy.
But you transitioned okay?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it wasn't something that you regret?
You go, and when you go in, the good thing about public school is that you have so many people, you'll find your clique. You'll find the people that you want to spend your time around, and you'll also find the people that you don't want to spend your time with. A lot of those. But I had a hard time going into middle school. I just didn't like how mean everybody was. It was just not nice, and teachers, the biggest thing that was hard with me with the teachers is I was used to having a teacher respect me as much as I respected them, and teachers these days, they're just so fed up and just will tell you to be quiet in unnice ways and do whatever they have to do to get to 3 o'clock, and instead of dealing with something, you get sent to a ISS room. Instead of being polite, they're just unmotivated. Yeah, the respect here was very nice.
It's hard, and it sounds callous, but at some point you just sort of get used to it. But I think that Montessori it certainly allowed me to learn how to get along with everybody. You know, when you're in such a small school, it makes it really difficult to run away from a problem or just something that you have an issue with. You have to work it through and you have to work it out. And eventually you have to make nice with that person or it's going to be a really long year. And so I think that was one of the most valuable experiences that Montessori taught me. Public school can suck sometimes, but with the Montessori background, you learn how to work through it and just sort of go on, I guess.
I was going to say, I think the only social difficulty I encountered was that I transferred to Newton Conover at the end of my 6th grade year, so I came in 7th grade, and Newton Conover Middle School is 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then these kids that are from Newton Conover, their 6th grade year was a little bit different for them because they came from Thornton and South Newton and Schubert. I think there's 3 elementary schools that come in too. But a lot of them went to school together for elementary school as well. So then I came in 7th grade, and if they didn't know the people from the other schools in elementary school, now they all did. And then I was there in 7th grade, and I was someone else new. And so I think maybe the first week or two, maybe the first month was a little challenging because no one knew who I was, and I knew no one. And so and then it was easier for them to meet me. And so someone would come up and say my name, and I'm, who are you? But I think, you know, the skills you learn here is meeting new people, being courteous to new people, just being kind, and being able to, even if you don't have the greatest like for someone, being able to put that aside and still be courteous. And after that first month, it was a lot easier, you know, like Drew was saying, where there's so many people, you find who you like.
Amanda and I still stick together, and we went to Montessori together when we were 3, so.
Isabel, I've had that question asked of me too, like, you know, you have them in this nurturing environment and they go out and what people call the real world. I don't know that I would classify traditional school as the real world. It's not what my life is like right now. But, you know, I think about if you knew a drought was coming, would you stop your plants from getting water now? I mean, wouldn't they be better off being nourished and nurtured now, and then they'll withstand the tough times better? That just never seemed to me like a reason to make it hard for them now.
And now that we're going through 8th grade, we get to shelter them a little bit longer. And everybody coming into high school is all starting new. You know, they're all coming in to a brand new experience together.
One other thing that Montessori really teaches you is, and it's not necessarily taught to you, it's just kind of a value that's instilled in you just by being here, is a certain amount of tolerance for everyone and for everyone's values. Which, as divisive as the outside world is at like even at my age, as divisive as some conversations I have, it's the tolerance I developed here is definitely definitely really great. It's a great skill for me to have at this point, and that served me well in middle school because there were kids who were definitely rude, and definitely conducted themselves in a way I wasn't used to because I had that certain amount of tolerance I learned at Montessori. I was able to see past that, and as a result, people would be mean to me and they would expect me to react back, and I wouldn't react, and they would think, oh well, maybe I can be friends with this kid because maybe he's actually a nice guy. Whereas like some kids, they come together and they react a certain way, and whereas these kids may otherwise be friends because they butt heads, it's possible.
The two most terrifying things for me going into 6th grade that I had to learn to get used to was another kid challenging me and making me play bloody knuckles, or doing the flinch, I get to hit you 3 times. Those were the two things that made me not want to go to school in 6th grade.
Yeah, we didn't have those in Montessori.
We missed that lesson.
I think my brother got that just at home because I was there. But it definitely wasn't something that he found across.
I think another skill that you really learn at Montessori, a life skill, is just how to talk to adults. At Montessori, there's so many adults, like all the time, like parents constantly want to be involved, and I'm speaking from personal experience. But you definitely learn how to communicate with people besides the ones in your age group. You learn how to walk up to somebody and introduce yourself. And I remember at like 7 giving a tour of the classroom to somebody that I'd never met before. But it was possible because I constantly interacted with adults and just people other than the ones outside my classroom, or the ones in my classroom. And I think that's definitely something that you take with you for life.
Trey and I were just talking the other day about how the Montessori kids, it's not that they are out to challenge authority, it's just that they know they have an opinion and they expect to have their opinions listened to and respected, just like they listen and respect to other people's opinions. And there's no feeling of challenging and being out to make trouble. It's just if they have an idea, they share it. And I like that. I want that for my kids all through their lives. To know that they should be listened to, that they're worth listening to.
That was definitely a big lesson here. You know, you want to express your opinion, which we're taught, and then we're expressed that we have to listen to the other person's. And a big example that I've had, not a hard time, but just going through it with all these things via Facebook about Amendment 1. You got all these people going one way, you got all these people going the other way, and when I see something that I don't like, instead of challenging it, I just have to learn to respect it, because if I don't respect somebody else's opinion, then why would I expect them to respect mine?
Well, I can also say for Isabella, when I was talking about learning to speak with adults, I can remember we had some customers over from Japan, and they were visiting the house. She had never met them, and she was probably between 4 and 5, and we're sitting there. They'd just gotten there, we're talking to them the first 5 minutes, and she just said, "Would you like to see a tour of the house?" Yeah. Where did you come from? And she got up, she took them all around the house and did a great tour, and just that, comfort level with not only adult, but somebody she had, never met before. And they still remember that, which was, they were impressed with such a, young child to feel that comfortable and that confident, to do that, which, I think that comes from their experience here at school, so.
I was a teacher in a public middle school in Charlotte, and a friend of mine said that his wife was opening a Montessori preschool, and could I just take Brianna? So you know, it looked like there were more people there. She was only 2 at the time, and I wasn't sure, I'd never heard of Montessori before. And Rhiannon loved materials so much, I thought we would never meet. And I thought if anything engages her this much, then it's worth checking out and going for. And then I saw the Montessori school here, and they were in the old building, and there was a loft, and kids were lying in the loft reading, and there was just such an atmosphere of peace and just learning going on. I was hooked.
We were told about the school by some friends, like Sarah. I had no experience with Montessori, had never even heard of it before. And we came for a tour, and I was so impressed with the, I'm trying to remember, at the time I think I described it as an ant colony. The kids were moving with purpose through the classroom. You know, there was purpose and self-discipline, and without teachers instructing them, you know, they were driven to, self-driven to find ways to learn things that day, and they knew how to do it. So I liked the self-motivation that the kids had without the strict controls, without being supervised by the teachers. They were led by the teachers. And once Nat spent a little bit of time here, he loved it so much that he kept him here.
For us, it was a friend of the family. She just wouldn't let it go. She was just raving about Montessori and what her kids were learning and the whole process. So, you know, it took a long time, but we finally came and took a look, and we'd never go back. I mean, I can see why she wouldn't let up, because I'm a believer too. It's just, I just wish everybody could learn this way. And here at this school, we have a added advantage that we have a male teacher for the young kids. That's almost non-existent in this, you know, in any early childhood. My little 5-year-old, I mean, she worships Kenny. To have a strong male figure at that age we're very, very lucky.
It was the same for us. We had a friend, Sally Fanjoy, who her daughter Marin was a Montessori student, and is now, she got a scholarship to Columbia in New York. And it's a good salary. When we started looking at schools or preschools for Isabella, she said, oh, you have to look at the Montessori school. And my husband and I went and observed a class, and I'll never forget it. I didn't know what to expect. And then when I went in, and they were actually having a birthday celebration. And they had made the cake. Like the child gets to make the cake, and it's healthy. No sugar at Montessori. And the kids, in a very orderly manner, went and got the plates and put them on the table, and they waited till everybody was seated before anybody touched a fork, you know, to put in their mouth. And I think, God, the school that I went to when I was growing up, it would have been like, you know, just pandemonium, you know, cake on the table and everybody's eating and grabbing stuff. And we were just so, and not just that, but we watched the activities that they did, and just like you said, it was done in an orderly manner without a lot of strict rules. I mean, they wanted to, you know, work on all these activities. Somebody was working on, you know, the bees doing math, and, you know, another child was drawing, and one was like learning how to peel an egg. And, I mean, it was just a little bit of everything. And we were, you know, like I said, I'll never forget that first time observing a class. It was really impressive.
Trey, may I put my 2 cents worth in on this?
Sure.
We had planned tentatively to homeschool Amanda. Yeah, you didn't. Because we like to travel, and that would be one way we could continue traveling and she not miss out on her education. We had talked with Ann Weffner, who homeschooled her kids, but she said she always tried to put them in Montessori, at least up through kindergarten. And so we thought, well, this sounds like a good idea. I have a background in education, and when I worked on some master's work, there was a course called Great Teachers, and we looked into Maria Montessori, and I learned about her methods and everything. And we came over to the school, and most of the kids were outside. And Kenyon was outside with the kids. Well, if you've met Kenyon, he's 6'5", 6'7". 3-year-olds are not that big. And what impressed the heck out of me, here you got this great tall guy. Some little kid comes up and tugs on his pants and says, "Hey, Kenyon." And he accordion plated himself down to the child's level, so they were eye to eye. And to me, that was very important. He didn't want to look down at the child at any point. We decided not to homeschool.
Best decision ever.
My husband and I have different points of view on education, but we agreed on Montessori. Best thing we ever did. What negatives do you see about Montessori?
Good question. Mary Helen, you need to leave.
I don't think I have anything to say.
I don't know what the kind of like foreign language education there is like in public schools that like 1st through 6th grade, and we did do some of it, but I got some of this in 6th grade, but one thing I wanted a little more of, and there's tons of cultural education in Montessori, like you learn about other cultures all the time, but I kind of wish that I had learned a little more of like maybe Spanish or French, although it's kind of hard to teach. I feel like it's kind of hard to teach young kids that when they're just now working on the mastery of English, although that may just be me being
That's time to do it.
We have Spanish now.
Yes.
Oh, really?
We have Spanish, yes.
I would have to agree with that, with the foreign language thing, but the thing that I did like about Montessori, sorry to go here, but like when we did have Spanish classes, they were taught in Spanish, and I feel like I learned more Spanish in a little bit of when I was in Montessori, because our teacher, Kim, she'd bring like a fruit basket, and we'd all be sitting around a circle, and she'd pick up an orange or any fruit, and she would say what it is, and you pass it around, and you said it out loud, and that's how we learned Spanish. And she didn't talk to us in English. It was not a write this word 20 times and get it in your head. It was all taught in Spanish.
Which is how they do it in college. I mean, that's how you learn a language, is immersion. I don't think I necessarily do it right in like middle school or high school, but I do remember the amount of language learning that we did do was definitely done in a way that was effective. I can't think of anything negative.
Yeah,
It's
I
just me.
don't have anything.
My one negative thing was shut down. So.
It's been addressed.
It's hard to get them away.
Yeah. They're here on Saturday.
Yeah, I know. The kids that came today, you know, they're having great fun doing their work and trying to get them away. I mean, there was a little girl who came to visit and she didn't want to go. She didn't want to leave. She knew she was right where she belonged. So.
That's all. There are days during the year where the kids get to have the parents in and show them some of the things that they've been doing. And it's always hard to keep it to the 20 minutes that's allotted for families. Because once you get the kids started, then they want to show you the next thing. And
They're so
Okay, that's a
excited
good
about
problem.
learning.
mm-hmm.
That's definitely something that I even now I'm excited about. Like I'll be off at school and I'll call my parents and be like, "Oh, I was just in my astronomy lab. I took pictures of the Eagle Nebula. Let me email you a picture." I am genuinely excited to learn, and I attribute this to Montessori. And so I continue informing my parents and anyone who will listen about everything I've learned, which I'm sure they appreciate. Other people might not so much.
During one of those days that you referred to, Sarah, where the parents get to come in and the child gets to she was what they demonstrate to you. Our then 4-year-old in Kenyon's class was showing us how she water paints, and she got her little jar full of water and she carried it over and she spilt a bunch. She didn't notice, but 2 other boys just saw it happen, got paper towel, wiped it up, went on with their work. My jaw dropped. I mean, they just took care of the environment. It was beautiful.
As a parent, the only negative I saw was that it didn't go far enough. It stopped too soon for us. I would have liked to have seen it go through 12th grade. We had hoped it would go through 12th grade, Mary Ellen.
It's not in the air.
We sent her out.
But at least now with it going through middle school, which it
Yes.
is for these kids.
Yes,
I feel like middle school is definitely, if it has to stop, middle school is a good place for it to stop.
yeah.
I enjoyed high school for the most part, and I'm not sure what Montessori high school would look like. It's kind of hard to picture, but
There is one in
I
Charlotte.
imagine it'd be a lot like.
I'd love to go visit it sometime, because they do have one, but they've got a larger population base.
I think one of the negatives for me is I feel like it sort of makes me not jaded towards the rest of the world, but I know that sometimes I'll be sitting in class and somebody will be misbehaving, and I'll look over and I'm just, how do you do that in the classroom? That goes against everything I've ever been taught. How do you sit there and talk while the teacher is trying to teach? Like what? I
The
wish
word
that-
respect comes to mind.
Yeah. I just wish that the Montessori environment, that what I'm always used to, could translate to all of their schools. I guess that's a negative because I don't see that outside of this classroom as much as I'd like to.